Hello everybody. I got my hair done today. I'm more blonde. I'm super excited. So I thought we'd do like a Barbie look, but not too Barbie, just like a little touch of Barbie, and also trash talk sesh. We're going to talk about the staff at the School for Troubled Girls, the good, the bad, the medium, the ugly. Just kidding. And yeah, we're just going to talk about it. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 or 5 that I talk about today. And I even got a little emotional and shed a single tear for one of the staff because she did care about us, and people often ask, like, was there anybody good there? And there was, but like only one. So yeah, so if you want to see how we got this look and also talk some straight garbage with me, then just stay tuned. Ladies and the like 5 men that are here, hi. Look, I went blonder today. If you don't like it, keep it to yourself because this is my reality and it wouldn't be helpful for me to hear that you don't like it. Because I'm getting used to it myself too. I'll take it down at the end, but I left my hairstylist. I'll put her Instagram down below. She was the nicest person, and I've been getting a little bit of social media flack lately, so having a nice day with this hairstylist really made a world of difference in my mood. Last night I filmed in a bad mental state, had to throw out the video. I hit delete. It was a shit video. I looked like crap, felt like crap. I could go on for a while, but having a better day anyway. And I came home to all these petite fours, I don't know how they say it correctly, from Viseart. And I love Viseart. Besides Pat McGrath, Viseart is like my ride or die, and they sent this little mini blue palette, so I think we should just like be a Barbie girl because it's Barbie coming out, but we should be like a realistic Barbie girl, not like as crazy as last time. Last time was too much. So yeah, also I thought that we could do a deep dive on all of the staff that were there when I was there. I'm not going to post any pictures because that's mean. And the staff aren't really the people that I truly have the beef with. A lot of the staff members were actually kind of victims in their own way. A lot were recruited in really dark times in their life from other rehab centers and brought to our center to like lead us. So I am going to talk about each staff and the counselors that I knew, and some of these people are still there today. We're going to start with the eye makeup. I have a little bit of lashes and eyeliner left from earlier. I'm going to try to keep them on and like not have to redo that because I'm lazy. And also it takes too much time. So yeah, let's jump right in. Okay, let's get a little base on the eye. I'm just using my Maybelline concealer. It's not the best primer if you have oily eyelids, so just keep that in mind. If you have a primer is always better, but I never have a primer because any good primer I've ever had in my whole life goes straight into my Pro Kit. But I like the Urban Decay eye primer. Pretty much any eye primer is decent. Some people love the MAC paint pots, but I find some of my gel liners smudge with those, so I don't use those in my kit. But definitely like UD, any kind of clear situation. Now, you guys, I'm so torn because we have purple quads and we have blue quads, and then we also have like mauve ones. I feel like we should do the blue because it's stunning. But neutral also, let's do the blue. Let's have fun. Let's do the blue. So this is the Petit Four Water Lotus. I feel like my mom and people from Louisiana, where it's like, where they eat they always call them Petit Fours. Is it just me? I don't know. But let's start with that shade there and go into the crease of the eye. and just see what this shadow is all about while I tell you about my staff members. So, when I was new to the program, we had staff named Kim, and I had a jump scare a few weeks ago because she added me on Facebook, or she requested me on Facebook, and I was afraid and I did not add her back because I was scared of what she'd say, because obviously I say all this stuff on the internet. And I've actually talked about her because she gave me my first ever discipline. So she almost kind of has this, like, I don't have a grudge against her, but she wasn't very nice. And like, that's my impression of her, and that's the way I feel about her. So let's start with her. She was not a popular staff because she was not very personable. And believe it or not, some of the staff were pretty friendly and like personable. Weird and crazy at their core, but like a little bit more of like a people person. And she wasn't really like a people person, you know, like she didn't really fool around with us. I don't know how she ended up there. She was somebody who was like a bit odd and raised in the church. And so I think like her life experience was really limited, and she didn't know what to do with like a bunch of teenage girls with like mental health problems, broken families, like stuff like that. Like she wasn't really like the ideal candidate for that, but it seemed like every single staff member who worked there was not an ideal candidate to be there. Very much her included. So she was maybe 35 and pretty harsh and severe. Like I had just gotten off Sister, and when you're on Sister, you don't get disciplines if you do something wrong because you have the protection of your sister or whatever. Because while you're learning the rules, they give you, I can't remember if it's 2 weeks or 4 weeks or 3 weeks, but they have you stay 6 feet close to your big sister for your first few weeks in the program. And while you're on Sister, you don't get disciplines because you aren't held accountable yet. But as soon as you're off Sister, you are held accountable. So the moment, literally my first morning that I was off Sister, she is the one who gave me the discipline for the sock, the infamous sock. A lot of you know the sock story because that was one of the first stories that I told when I started going really viral for like all this, for sharing these stories. So a lot of people know about the sock, but if you don't know about the sock, when you are called to line up at the door, we line up like military style, all of your bunk stuff, all of your personal items, the sink you use, the toilet you use, your closet, everything has a place. And most of the disciplines given out were for things being out of place. So I got off Sister, and like the next day, like the same week, I don't know if it's the same day actually, I think it was, but I'm not positive. But I was really, really new. And there was a sock on the floor, and she was making like a huge deal about it, and I didn't know it was my sock on the floor. So she kept calling each person back one by one, and everyone's like, it's not my sock, it's not my sock, it's not my sock. Then she called me back, and I was like, oh, that's my sock. I should have lied. I didn't know that I was gonna get a discipline for it because I'd only been there like a few weeks. Like there's a lot of rules to take in, but she gave me a 1 hour for that. And then that Saturday I worked for 1 hour because I left the sock on the floor. So that was my first experience with her, and I didn't like her ever since. And also not only that, but she's just not pleasant, kind of like huffing and puffing around, and it just made me angry. Her presence made me mad because she was so literal with some of the rules that like you'd get in trouble when you really weren't meaning to. And whenever there was staff like that who I felt like were being unfair, I kind of maintained like this like unfair vendetta against any staff who like wasn't fair. Like it really, really bothered me because they were in control of my life, and I didn't like that, and I didn't like them. And if on top of all of that, you weren't very personable and you didn't make me feel comfortable, you know, because I lived there and my parents were paying for this stupid shit. So I don't know. Anybody who treated me like lesser than human, I kind of held a grudge against. So I had a grudge, and I, so I, oh, maybe I do have a grudge held against her. I don't know. I don't really get her vibe. There's some people in life that you don't gel with, but she didn't gel with anybody, because there were certain staff who would joke around with you a little bit, who I will cover as well. Like there was this girl, Emily. She could have a good time every now and then, not too often, but sometimes, you know, like sometimes some of the staff would just give you a bit of a break, and we really needed that sometimes. So it wasn't common, but like there were better staff. So that was the first one. Everybody on this campus kind of looked like they should be working on this campus, because they all wore like conservative clothing, had really outdated hair and makeup styles, thick Southern accents, and like big hips, and like big women, like big boobs, big everything. Like it was kind of like, you know, like Tammy Faye. Like if you watch a video like that big hair, there's a lot of women in the Southern church were like big women, big hair, and like darkly lined eyes and stuff, or like really thick foundation. It was just kind of like an outdated kind of church vibe, if you get me. Let's go into one of the cool staff. Now, by cool staff, yes, they were cool, but they had their own set of issues. So we'll start with Emily. Emily is currently missing, and I hope to God she's okay. She was, I think, 24 when I was 16. So, and I think she got there around 22 and 23, and she had demons of her own. She had got out of a rehab center and then like did well, converted to their faith, and then they brought her to our school. And I think that she was really harsh, but I think at her core, she was doing her best, and I could kind of like see her struggles, like to like do good and like abide by this like new lifestyle, because she had all kinds of like addiction problems and stuff before she went to this other center. So like I kind of like cut her some slack, because first of all, she's like really, really young at that time. And second of all, like she had a lot of trauma. Like her story was crazy, and she wouldn't open up to a lot of people. And so she was one of the staff that could be really severe sometimes. Like this staff, this is the one that gave me a really long set of sentences for like referencing a male person. I wasn't like talking about boys in that way. I was just like telling a story, and a male was in the story. I can't even remember it, but she gave me like the fattest set of sentences for that. And she was really rigid sometimes. Like she couldn't really differentiate like gray area like didn't exist to her. So sometimes you'd be doing something that was like truly innocent, but like maybe like on technical terms breaks a rule, and she would take that and freaking run with it. And it would be so frustrating, because you'd be like, like you'd talk to her and there was like no reasoning there. But at the same time, looking back, I kind of understand her a little bit more than I used to, because I used to freaking, oh my God, I used to hate her guts. Because listen, when you're that age and you're getting disciplines, the disciplines are really disruptive to everyday life. They make you want to tear your hair out, because maybe you haven't written home in like a week, or you're expecting a letter and then you get a set of sentences. Just like so frustrating to like get that time to connect, and the very small window of time, of free time in your day taken away to like have a cramp in your hand and just sit in solitude writing. The writing disciplines were not the most severe, but they were the most irritating, because your hand hurts. Like, it's mind numbing. You're not thinking about the stupid shit you're writing. You're just trying to get it done as fast as possible. And then they go through it and read them all. And if you mess up, then they might like add you 5 or 10 more. So I definitely did not like her. But now after the fact, I like feel a little bit bad because she got out and she lost it. Because here's the thing, when you're in a program like this, even as a staff member, even the staff were like tightly controlled, monitored, and their days were like scheduled. And the staff also worked a lot. They did like between 40 to 50 hours of work every week and didn't get paid overtime and also got paid very, very little. Like when I was there, I was making under $5 an hour. I can't remember, I did the math a couple times, but it was a very small wage. Like, you just barely get paid and you're exhausted and you constantly have teenage girls challenging you. And if you've ever been challenged by a teenager as an adult, it's embarrassing. Like, I can't imagine how embarrassed they just felt all the time, because sometimes the teenagers are obviously right, but they're not like kind in the way that they say it. So if you get called out, you just feel like an asshole. So I do sympathize for the staff, because these are like ex-felons. They can't go anywhere or do anything else, really. They came from rehab to work in a rehab. Like, these aren't regular people who work these programs. These are people who are either church kids or ex-cons, no in-betweens, no normal people. There was one normal girl named Kayla, and she came in she started as a shadow to my staff, Miss Pachi. We called them all Miss, so it was actually Miss Kayla, Miss Pachi. She was shadowing the residential staff, and then she was set in place to become a counselor. And she was normal, and she was also smart, and she was like qualified with what she was doing. She had just gotten out of some sort of like therapy program. Like, she had trained for what she was doing. She was like the only qualified person on the campus ever, almost. And she was gone within like 4 months, because she came, like, she's a Christian. She came as a Christian to do missions work, to help people, to love them, to help teenagers. Like, it's admirable what she was trying to do, but then I think she realized that doesn't happen here. And she was being alienated by like the directors, etc. So, and probably bullied by them too for being different and for having these qualifications. Some of the other staff were kind of petty too. They were probably a little bit jealous, and they probably liked to like put her in her place. The other staff would do this to each other. I know this because they converted me into a staffer. They would get kind of jealous and kind of like correct each other. And in the church, they say like, oh, I'm just giving you a correction because you're my sister in Christ. But really, it's more petty than that. It's not just a correction because we're sisters in Christ. It's a correction because they want to show you that they have like a leg up. So this girl came in, she was normal. She dressed cute. She wore normal makeup. She was fit. She went on runs and stuff. Most people weren't very fit. And they couldn't chase us if we ran away. So they'd actually have senior students who were about to go home. They'd have them chase us because they know they'd come back because they're almost out, you know? So, yeah. So that was Kayla. She was there for a little bit of time. Let's talk about Pachi. So for half of my time in the dorms, and then when did she leave? Like, I don't know if she left before me or if I left before her, but she didn't stay forever. But she was this lady from the Dominican Republic. She was a church kid. She never did any wrong, but she did and she also did study psychology and stuff there. And she was cuckoo in her own right. Like, she was cuckoo in the religious. Actually, I don't even know if I want to call her cuckoo. I don't think I want to call her cuckoo. You can't call somebody crazy just because of their religion, but she was very intense about it, like speaking in tongues, like prophesying over people, assisting in exorcisms. So there was oh, she is cuckoo. What am I saying? So there was an exorcism one day that the director's wife and Pachi were like casting out. Oh, and Sarah, whose husband SA'd a girl there. She's on the website. You can take a look at her. Don't get me started on that. So they had an exorcism on this cutest girl you've ever seen. They had an exorcism on her, and they were like, demons come out, speaking in tongues like, ha, blah, 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 blah. And all these ladies are like crowding this little girl named, I'm not going to say her name, this little girl, tiny little body. I saw her picture the other day. She's like a mom now, this little girl. She was a little girl at the time. She looked like a little doll back then, but she was real mad. She was there and her fists were always like clenched, and they were casting a demon out of this girl, and it was like the cutest little girl. It's like, you guys really think that girl has a demon? Come on, like, get real. She doesn't, and you're crazy. So Pachi was pretty cuckoo. She did care about us. I'd say she cared about us more than anybody else, which is why I didn't want to call her crazy, I guess. I'm going to try to use some of these QL lashes. I'll have these linked. These are lash clusters. I'm going to try to get them on top of my existing lash clusters just to bump it up a bit. But yeah, I think like at her core, Pachi was a good person and cared about other people. She was raised in the church. I don't think she'll ever step away from it. I think like she was doing what she knew how to do in the best way that she could, and she was also coming from a completely different country. She didn't have tons of life experience, and she was like in her late 20s when she arrived, and I think that she just thought that like God had called her to be there. Like she would say stuff like that, and she was always the one to like really dig into you spiritually, which sometimes she was wrong, but she was also like right about some things. Like, and she also made you feel special, which I think kind of pushed a lot of people towards her, because she would give like, I don't like this lash, I'm going to use a different one. She would give like a lot of individual talks and attention to most girls. I think she was one of the only people who I felt really saw me, which kind of makes me emotional. Kind of like can't be mad at her because like she was the only person there who seemed to care on a human level, and she was the only person who could pick up on our context clues, like if somebody was down. I don't know why it's making me emotional. I've had a weird week. Like strangely emotional, and I'm not really emotional. Like I'll tell you with like a deadpan like the most terrible things, but it was kind of sweet because she like, you knew that if she came on to be staff that day, like if you did something wrong, you would get in trouble and she would give you a discipline. But at the same time, like if you needed like encouragement, and it was all extremely religious based, which is why I have a small bias against it, because like any kind of encouragement from her, it was strongly tied to religion. It was like only religious based encouragement. But it made you feel like somebody was looking out for you. But yeah, you just knew that somebody cared. And like to have positive attention at that time, we were like competing for it, and it didn't come easily. So she was somebody who really did impact our lives in a positive-ish way, besides like the dramatic exorcism and stuff. Like I can't even fault her because like, well, actually I can a little bit, because it's weird, but at the same time, she in her core believed that stuff to be true. And I think sometimes like good people get caught up in religion and do the wrong thing. I think that a lot of people have good intentions in life in general. And obviously, like, if you're becoming like a nun or something, like, many of those people like that, believe in it at their core. They think they're there to do God's work and they genuinely want to make a good, positive difference in the world. And there's some weird culty aspects of it, which is also why I think like good people end up in cults sometimes. I mean, like I did. I was a minor. I'm not sure if it would happen as a grown-up, but like for some reason she was there and she was kind of like gave us hope. Like, and even just like gave us what we needed from like a parental / like authority figure. Like people, me included, by mistake called her mom sometimes. And I was so embarrassed when I called her mom. But she was kind of like that to us. Like she was like more than a staff to most of us. I always think it's so cringe when people get emotional on social media. You know, when you're swiping on TikTok or Instagram and you see somebody like the opening scene to their video is them like like crying. I think that's the most cringiest thing ever. So I'm going to edit these clips out. I don't know what my problem is. I'm on my period and I've had a pretty emotional week. And thinking about Pachi is making me emotional because we had such like a weird falling out because she can't be separate from like what she believes in. So she thought that I was like really gone astray when I was like being a lesbian and then doing X, Y, and Z and then also like revolting against them. Like I went with it when I was there and then like life became real to me and I freaked and I like blocked all of them and stuff. But she was still like pretty supportive years later, which makes me sad. Because we also will never and can never agree, me and her. We will never be able to have a normal conversation, I feel like. But yeah, people ask all the time if there were any good staff. That's probably the only one. But like I said, she was participating in the exorcisms and stuff. Like, life isn't black and white, and people can be more than one thing. Like, and it makes it confusing to navigate, which is, I think, why I'm emotional about it, because I'm still confused. Because, like, also, it's kind of like when a caregiver, she wasn't abusive, but it's like when a caregiver is abusive, but you rely on that caregiver and you get a lot from them that you need. It's kind of like that there's a strange dynamic and it kind of makes me emo. Yeah, that was Pachi. Next, let's talk about Kate. Kate is not somebody I would ever cry over. She's not, she had her own, I don't know, she struggled with like EDs and stuff, and she went into treatment for that and for drug use, and then she ended up getting transferred to being like one of our staff, and she was really harsh and really rough around the edges, and she was kind of mean-spirited sometimes. Like, everybody has somebody in their lives who has been mean-spirited towards them, but who also is kind of a friend. Like, do you know if you've ever had a friend like this, and it's not a true friend, but it's somebody who makes it seem like you are, like you become friends and then they say something kind of mean to you, call you something kind of degrading, but then if you confront it, they're like, no, silly, that's not what I meant. What do you mean your feelings are hurt? She was kind of like that. Like, she would kind of like low-key bully me, and she was a lot older than me. She was 26 and I was like 16. So she was like 10 years older than me, and sometimes she'd just be like such a bully and like kind of like infer that I'm like stupid and I'm a dumb blonde, which is, I think I've had a few kind of like authority figures, like a few bosses treat me that way. And I think it stems from a place of their own insecurity, of course. But when you're in the thick of it, it's hard not to take it personal. And when you're in the program and there's somebody kind of, a staff member kind of like bullying you and chastising you, like it's pretty hurtful. Like, she would chastise the students a lot. The little girl with autism, and there were 2 girls with autism, one like barely on the spectrum. Like, if this is a spectrum, she was like from like not so severe to more severe, then she was like over here, and then there was another girl who was like over here, maybe more in the middle, but like towards this end, and she would push them both beyond their limits. Like, one day, like the girl who had a more mild case of autism, she would give her discipline whenever she could. It was almost like she was watching her to punish her. And like the little girl, she's just a little girl. Like, she came in at 12. She had all kinds of just everything. It seems like everything was against her. Like, she had to really swim upstream, and she was always giving her disciplines and calling her out and stuff. And then the other girl who had the more severe autism, who was a little bit more like, just a little bit more needing of space, extra support, different treatment. Like, you can't treat everybody the same, especially when they're teenagers and have different things, different struggles. So she was pushing this girl beyond her limits, and it almost came to a physical altercation. And if it had, then it would have been the student who was really harshly disciplined, not her. But she like pushed her to it. So, oh God, this staff member, it was weird because, again, there was like this juxtaposition of like her sometimes being like funny and witty and like making jokes, and then also making like mean jokes or disciplining really harshly, and like being kind of like tough love, but like in kind of a toxic way. Yeah. I still get mad when I think about that stuff, because at the time you couldn't stick up for yourself. And then even I had like an elevated position at one point, but it wasn't more elevated than her position. She was still like guiding me in everything that I did. And I was still in high school. I was just like finishing and like interning or whatever, free labor. So she would like use that to like, she would like use those moments of like me being there and just trying to like finish up to kind of like get somebody to do her work. I had to do a lot of her work and take on like so many overtime shifts and stuff, and she made the schedule, and she really like, she had me do everything. And then also like be her little person to just like bully all the time. She's like bullying me, and bullying isn't something that it is something that I have dealt with, but it's not something that I complain about, because people have been bullied much worse than me. I don't know. She's just like bullying me a lot, and I know why, and I'm not gonna say why. But But like some people, if they're not happy with it, I mean, her whole existence was this place, and it wasn't a fun or happy place. Like she had her little apartment at the top of the hill. It was not nice. She didn't make any money because she made more than most, but it was like a teacher's pet kind of thing, but she still probably was earning like below the poverty line, like. So, yeah, and then they actually elevated her to a counselor, and I don't know if she is still there counseling. She was, but then, to be honest, I started making videos, and I think that she asked to be taken off the website so that she wouldn't be like exposed. And around the same time, the directors too took their pictures off of the website. They took theirs and hers, and they always called her like a surrogate daughter, like they were very close. So it just makes me wonder, like, if they all just took their pictures off there so they wouldn't take any heat. I think that's what happened. And like it sucks too, because like I feel bad like sitting around like talking shit, because some of these people, like, not the directors, I'll never ever ever feel bad for talking about them, but I'll always feel a little sorry talking about some of the staff, because I'm like, I was alongside that, and it was a really tough position, and they're really overworked and underpaid. But at the same time, it's like, why are you still there? Like I feel like these are people who feel so small in the world that they have to live in a cult and like carry out the devil's work. Like, I don't think they can see past it, and it's sad. I can't imagine if I lost out on my life and was still there. Like, one girl, I've told you guys again and again about the girl who I went to the program with, who's still there. That's the strangest thing ever to me. This girl, Caitlin, she's on their website. She got admitted February of 2009, just like me. We graduated together. She left, but she returned really quickly. When she left, it was just to go to a Teen Challenge affiliated program, Bible college, not a real Bible college. It's under the same umbrella. So she never left Teen Challenge, and then she just went to a different one, and then she came back and has been a staff there for like, I want to say like, she was gone for probably 2 years, and then has been a staff there for like probably 10 now. 10 years. This has consumed her whole life. And you guys, the campus, it's not a beautiful place to be. It's depressing. Let me put a little picture or a video here. Like, it's not the worst place ever, and they glamorize it in most of the videos and stuff, because they're like, we're on a lake and blah, 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 blah. It's in the boonies. It's not a nice place to be, and I just can't imagine still being there. Like, I can't relate at all. Like, don't you guys want something good for your life? I don't know. All I've ever wanted is like to have a nice life. Like, and by a nice life, I mean happy, peaceful, solo, independent, nobody telling me nothing, because nobody cares about me like I care about me. And that is the truth too. If you're under your parents' roof, I know a lot of you guys say that you like struggle and you have gone through things at home just like I have. Just know, if you can get yourself healthy and strong into a place of independence, oh my gosh, life can be so great. Like, life can be so good and it can be so bad, but when you're in control of it, and like, we're also pretty privileged to be in America, we can build our own future, like we can set out and like grab hold of our career paths and stuff that we want, and we have the opportunity to do so. Life just gets so much better. when you're away from toxic weirdos. So yeah, can't relate. Let me try to think of any more staff. I'm going to talk about Sarah because Sarah was a school teacher and then they switched her to counselor, and I have a burning hatred. And now, hate is a strong word. I know that. But her husband was hired as a school teacher while she was a counselor, and he had a relationship with a student. 16 years old, I think, maybe 17. 16 or 17, had a physical relationship, cheated on his wife with the student. And this girl, she watches my TikToks. It only just happened to her like a couple years ago. So she's pretty brazen when she discusses it, but I think it's gonna come back to haunt her later, because that's what happens when these things happen. When you're young, you feel invincible, and you get exploited by adults, and you don't realize it until you're 28. Most people don't realize it. Like the little girl who married that Hollywood actor at 16, she didn't know. Like she thought it was consensual, sure, but it wasn't. And later she realized the horrors of it. So I think this girl is going to really suffer for this later, like just mentally, and she's going to realize that it's so much worse, because when I talked to her, she was like, yeah, haha, and then they called me in and they blamed everything on me. And it seemed like it was kind of like an eye roll thing, but I couldn't believe that the adults in her life did that to her. But here's the thing, I'm not blaming her. I'm mad for her. Like, I want her to be more mad. But when it's your own story, it's hard to be as mad about it, because like many teenagers in these camps have been failed many times before, and something like this is no surprise. So yeah, so Sarah was a school teacher. Extremely condescending, not very helpful. She couldn't teach me shit. I couldn't pass any of my subjects because I am not school smart. I am actually, if anything, I'm school dumb. I can't do math. I cannot do it to save my life. And they use that against me to, extort me for free labor. So Sarah was my teacher. She couldn't teach me shit. And then they moved her into counseling. And, I can't stand the woman. She's so condescending. I remember one day I was finished with my counseling session with her, and the counseling sessions were always just a whole lot of nothing. Preaching, she's really preachy. She just wanted an audience to go like this too. And she'd do it with a smile. And one day after counseling, I was with her in the bathroom, because God forbid I use the bathroom on my own. And I used 2 paper towels, and she was like, actually, you should only use 1 paper towel. Look, you open up the whole paper towel, and then you go like this. And this bitch showed me how to dry my hands. And then just the audacity of her husband to essay a girl, and for me to hear that she called that girl into her office and blamed it on the girl. They had a big meeting and they kicked the girl out of the school. And I know why. They kicked her out because they didn't want to get in trouble for this. They didn't want this to get out. And like the only people who know it are them, the girl, whoever she's told, and that's it. And I'm sure he'll never get in trouble for it. It's insane. Also, I just used the Chanel Boy. This is the Lily Rose lipstick. Lily Rose Depp, she wore this lipstick in The Idol, but it's a beautiful lipstick, but you guys know I like it light. I wish it was a little lighter. It was really expensive for me to not love it. Maybe I'll return it. Probably not though, I never return anything. But I think this is our makeup. And I think I'm done talking trash. And let's take the hair down. So this is my new hair color. So I'm still kind of getting used to it because it just happened today. I had a salon appointment at 10 a.m. I was there until 2. She's like, my hair looks smooth and straight and fine and flat. She's like, you have so much hair. She has to like, you know, really pull the curl out of it. I have very curly hair. But it's straight in the front. It's strangest texture ever. Nobody believes me until the hairstylist do my hair. And yeah, she was super sweet. I love what she did. And the back is a lot darker. And she said that in 6 months, we're just gonna utilize my natural color more, and we're gonna do a partial highlight in 6 months. So in a few months, it's going to be kind of like back to the money piece situation because I'm going to keep money piecing it. And then next time she's just going to brighten up the top and leave my darker pieces because I don't really want to be a bleach blonde anymore. I think I'm outgrowing it a little bit, and also my hair can't tolerate it. So I also bought a ton of product. I bought $150 in hair product from her, but she was so kind to educate me that I was like, yeah, take the money. She didn't have to. No hairstylist has ever broken it down the way that she broke it down for me today. So I'll put her down below. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed getting ready with me. I love you guys. I'm obsessed with this blue eyeshadow. So let me know what you think in the comments down below. I think these are around like $30-something, which is pretty good for the quality. Like, I stan a Viseart palette. Viseart is supreme. Viseart and Pat McGrath, ooh, I will pay for them. But these were gifted, but I'd pay for them, and I have paid for them. I've actually spent a fortune of my own money on this stuff, but I'm so blessed that they sent me these. So yeah, thanks you guys. I love you so much, and I'll see you for the next one. Bye.